Hey guys, tonight we are going somewhere hot, wet, and crawling with things that want to bite you, shoot you, or both. It is a world of mud, monsoon rains, and the constant hum of insects, where your best night of sleep might be in a hole you dug yourself, and your alarm clock could be incoming artillery. We are diving into what it was really like to be a Vietnamese soldier during the Vietnam War. Forget the action movie gunfights and the slow-motion hero shots. The truth is, you probably would not last a week out there, and some did not even make it through the first day. So before we wade into the thick of it, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I do not need pity clicks, just the people who want to be here. Drop a comment with where you are tuning in from and what time it is for you. I still love seeing the mix of night owls, early birds, and people who really should be sleeping, but decided to hang out here instead. Now turn down the lights. Maybe put on a fan for that constant low drone in the background, because that sound will fit right in with where we are going. And ease yourself into the thought that you have just been dropped into 1967, somewhere in the dense green chaos of the Vietnamese jungle. The good news, you are alive. The bad news, so is everything else. From the swarms of mosquitoes to the man out there right now who has been told you are the enemy. You are wearing a uniform that already feels like it is glued to your skin. You smell like a mix of gun oil, sweat, and wet socks. And you have no idea how long it has been since you were truly dry. The air feels thick enough to chew. And somewhere in the distance, there is a faint pop that could be fireworks. Except, you know, it is not. You are not in a barracks with a neat row of bunks. You are crouched in a foxhole barely deep enough to protect you. The damp earth sticks to your elbows and knees. Above you, the canopy hides the sky, trapping the heat, the smell, and the sound. You cannot see far, but you hear everything. The rustle of leaves, the high-pitched whine of mosquitoes, the faint drip of water from yesterday's rain still making its way down the vines. Somewhere out there is the enemy. And somewhere closer, maybe even inside your boots, are a couple of leeches who have decided breakfast is served. And this is not the bad part yet. This is the good morning. This is the part before you start marching, before you hear gunfire, before the real exhaustion sets in. Because here, the day never gets easier. It just changes the way it tries to break you. You wake up before the sun has even thought about showing itself. Because in this place, daylight is not your alarm. Everything else is. The ground beneath you is damp, soft enough to leave an imprint of your ribs, but not soft enough to be called comfortable. Your bed is just a shallow hole you dug yourself the night before, lined with whatever leaves or scraps you could find, which by morning are either stuck to your skin or halfway decomposed. Above you, there is a piece of camouflage netting that pretends to hide you from anyone looking down, but mostly just traps heat and makes the air feel like a slow cooker. The smell hits you before the sound does. Mud, wet socks, stale sweat, gun oil, and something faintly metallic that you hope is just rust and not blood. Then the noise starts up again, like the jungle has hit an invisible switch. Insects first, a constant high-pitched whine that never really stopped overnight, only dipped low enough for you to forget until now. Then the chirps, the croaks, the occasional rustle of something moving in the undergrowth that could be a lizard or something large enough to take your foot off. You breathe in, and it is like inhaling through a wet towel. Thick, humid, heavy. It makes your lungs feel as if they are working double shifts. You do not stretch, not because you do not want to, but because you do not want to shift too much and alert someone who might be watching you. The jungle has eyes, not the friendly kind. Somewhere out there in the same sticky darkness you just blinked awake into, another soldier might be lying in wait, thinking about how to take you out before you even finish your first mouthful of rice today. The paranoia is not paranoia here. It is survival. Your boots, which you left on because taking them off just means something will crawl inside, are now twice as heavy as they were yesterday. You do not even have to check to know they are wet. Everything is wet. Your socks, your shirt, your skin. It is a permanent state. You have stopped hoping for dry and have started grading things on a scale from slightly damp to can wring water out of it. Your uniform, stiff in places from old sweat and dirt, is already sticking to you in all the wrong spots. The fabric is thin enough to breathe, but thick enough to hold every drop of moisture against your skin. Like a clammy handshake you cannot escape. You glance at the man next to you. He is not sleeping. No one sleeps fully out here. His eyes are half-lidded, but he is still alert enough that if something moved in the brush, he would snap up. That is what passes for rest. Short bursts of shut eye while your brain stays awake enough to remind you that you are not safe. You nod to each other. The kind of silent greeting that says, "You are still alive? Good enough." Breakfast is not even a thought yet. First comes checking your weapon. Because the jungle is not just a battlefield, it is a gun's worst nightmare. Moisture, dirt, and rust want to ruin your rifle faster than the enemy does. You tilt it slightly, checking the chamber, feeling the faint grit of yesterday's mud clinging to it like it has paid rent. You will have to clean it again, probably later today, definitely tonight. If you do not, it will not matter how good your aim is. A jam in the middle of a firefight is just another way to die. The ground around you is not just mud, it is alive. Ants crawl over your fingers. Mosquitoes zero in on every inch of exposed skin. And the occasional leech makes itself known only after it has gotten comfortable and had a drink. You do not scream when you pull one off. You do not even flinch. You just rip it away, smear the blood it leaves behind, and move on. Because here, being disgusted wastes time you cannot spare. You listen, because sound is everything. The rustle of leaves can mean wind, an animal, or a person. You have learned to tell the difference, though the jungle likes to play tricks, making a bird call sound like a whispered order in the distance. Sometimes the enemy will use it too, copying the noise of a common bird to signal one another. Out here, silence is not quiet, it is suspicious. Your body aches in places you did not even know had muscles before you arrived. The weight of your gear presses into your shoulders, the straps digging into skin that is already rubbed raw. You carry your rifle like it is part of you, because it has to be. Alongside it, you have grenades, spare magazines, a canteen full of water you are half afraid to drink, and a few crumpled packets of rations. Every ounce counts, but nothing is light when you are moving through air this thick. The day is already starting to heat up, though technically the sun has not made it past the treetops yet. By noon, it will be like standing inside a furnace someone forgot to turn off. You have heard men talk about wanting the sun to come out because they are tired of the rain. That is a rookie mistake. The sun here does not dry you. It only makes you sweat more, makes your clothes stick tighter, and cooks you in your own uniform. You shift slightly, trying not to make noise, because the roots beneath you are pressing into your hip. The ground here is never even. There is always something digging into you, poking at your ribs, reminding you that comfort is not part of the deal. You think about the last time you slept in an actual bed, and you realize you cannot remember the feeling. That was another life, one where mornings did not come with the possibility of stepping on a landmine before breakfast. Somewhere to your left, there is a low murmur. Two of your squadmates are exchanging a few words. No one talks loudly out here. Voices carry in strange ways in the jungle, bouncing off trees, getting swallowed up by vines, or suddenly sounding much closer than they are. The air is deceptive, and so is distance. You could hear someone chopping wood and think they are a mile away, only to find them 50 yards ahead. Your stomach growls, but you ignore it. Hunger is just part of the background noise now, same as the insects and the heat. When food comes, it comes. When it does not, you deal with it. Out here, nobody is counting calories for health. They are counting them for survival. You take a small sip from your canteen, just enough to wet your mouth without draining too much. The water is warm, has a faint chemical taste, and might still be questionable even after the purification tablets. But thirst will kill you faster than whatever is in it, so you drink. There is movement above, a branch shifting, leaves parting slightly, and your grip tightens on your weapon without you even thinking. It turns out it is just a monkey staring down at you with that casual, unblinking curiosity only animals have. You have learned not to assume the wildlife is harmless. Monkeys have been known to give away positions, whether on purpose or just because they are loud little nuisances. You watch it for a moment until it moves off, and the canopy swallows the sound. Every second you spend here, you are aware of how exposed you are. Even in a hole, even under cover, you are in someone else's territory. The jungle is not yours. It is theirs. The terrain works for them, hides them, feeds them. You are just trying to move through it without becoming another story someone tells about the man who did not make it back. You glance at the faint outline of the path ahead, if you can even call it that. It is more like a series of spaces between trees where it is only slightly easier to walk. That is where you are heading when the word comes. For now, you wait. You swat at a mosquito. You shift your rifle in your lap. You try not to think about the fact that this is only the first few minutes of the day, and there are at least 14 more hours before you get to dig another hole, crawl into it, and start this whole process again. You hear a faint metallic click somewhere behind you, someone adjusting their gear, and you know it will not be long before you are on your feet, wading through vines and mud again. The jungle feels like it is breathing around you, every leaf dripping, every branch shifting just enough to keep you guessing. You are already sweating, your boots already feel heavier, and you have not even taken your first step yet. Last night when you stopped moving for the day, you did not go inside somewhere warm and dry. You did not even have 4 walls to lean against. You dug a hole in the ground, scraped it out with a small entrenching tool, until it was just deep enough that if you curled yourself into it, the top of your head was below ground level. That is your bed, a foxhole. It is not some tidy little square like you see in training manuals. Out here, the ground is not cooperative. Roots as thick as your wrists snake through the soil, forcing you to dig at awkward angles. Rocks wedge themselves exactly where your elbow wants to rest. The dirt crumbles in places, holding together just enough until the next heavy rain turns it into a soup that you will wake up lying in. There is no finished foxhole. There is only good enough for tonight. You try to line it with whatever you can find. Banana leaves if you are lucky, grass if you are desperate, but it never really helps. By the time you have laid them out, they are already damp from the air, and after a few hours, they are flattened into a slick green paste that sticks to your skin. Sometimes you find a scrap of canvas or an old poncho to lay down, but even that just turns into another wet layer beneath you. Sleeping in the ground is not about comfort. It is about not being a target. You want as much of yourself below the surface as possible, so that if someone sprays the tree line in the middle of the night, you are harder to hit. That is the theory. In reality, you are still exposed to shrapnel, to mortar, to anything that drops in from above. But a hole feels better than nothing. When the rain comes, and in the monsoon season, it always comes, you do not just get wet, you get submerged. Water pools in the bottom of your hole, soaking through your clothes from below, while the sky dumps more on top of you. You cannot stretch your legs because there is no space. You cannot roll over because the walls are right there. You curl up, knees pressed against your chest, rifle balanced awkwardly so it stays out of the mud, and you simply endure it. And the bugs, always the bugs, do not care if you are armed. Ants will find their way in by the hundreds, marching over your body like they own it. Beetles the size of matchboxes crawl into your gear. Spiders drop in from above, land on your chest, and skitter away before you can swat them. Mosquitoes do not even wait for you to settle down. They hover in your face the second you stop moving, whining in your ears, finding every gap in your uniform. The repellent helps for about 10 minutes before your sweat washes it away. The smell of your foxhole is a mix of everything you have tracked in. Mud, mold, gunpowder residue, your own sweat, and whatever organic matter was already there. Sometimes that means rotting leaves. Sometimes that means something dead you did not notice until it started to smell. You tell yourself it is just a bird. You do not check to be sure. When you close your eyes, you can still feel the uneven earth pressing into your bones. Every twitch, every shift sends a little cascade of dirt down your collar or into your boots. Your back aches from the angle. Your neck cramps from trying to keep your head tilted in a way that does not press your face into the wall. You might get 2 hours of real sleep in a night, broken up into 20-minute chunks when your brain decides it is safe enough to relax before snapping you awake again at the faintest sound. And that faint sound could be anything. A branch snapping in the distance, a burst of wind moving the leaves, or it could be a man crawling toward you with a knife in his teeth. You do not get to assume it is nothing. You grip your rifle, you listen, and you let your eyes adjust to the shadows until you are sure. That is why no one sleeps deeply out here. The foxhole is not a bed. It is a waiting room. In the dry season, the ground bakes and cracks, leaving sharp edges that cut into your hands as you dig. In the wet season, it turns to a slop that clings to everything, coats your skin, and gets into your rations. The walls sometimes collapse in the middle of the night, dumping half a load of mud onto your legs. You just dig it out, shift over a few inches, and keep lying there. If you are lucky, you share the hole with a buddy. Not because it is roomy. 2 people in a foxhole means knees jammed into ribs and elbows and faces, but because you can take turns staying awake. One keeps watch while the other gets a few minutes of rest. It is the closest thing you will get to feeling secure. Alone, every noise sounds closer. With someone else, you can at least pretend there is time to react. Sometimes, if you are near a base or a temporary camp, you will get to sleep in something like a bunker. Wooden planks reinforcing the sides, maybe a bit of sandbag cover above. That is luxury. That is the jungle equivalent of a hotel room. You still smell. You are still damp. You are still in danger. But you do not wake up with your arm half buried in mud. The foxhole makes you appreciate even that. When the morning comes, you do not get out of your bed. You climb out of it like you are dragging yourself up from the grave. Your legs are stiff. Your back feels like you have been sleeping on a bundle of sticks. And your uniform is twice as heavy from the moisture it absorbed overnight. You shake off leaves and dirt, check your weapon again, and start the day already tired. That is the part no one tells you. Out here, you never really start fresh. You just keep carrying the exhaustion forward. The hole you slept in last night will probably be abandoned by the time you return. If you return, it will fill with water, with mud, with leaves. It will vanish back into the jungle like it was never there, leaving nothing to show you ever occupied that patch of earth, except maybe a few spent shell casings and a boot print that will wash away in the next rain. Then you dig another one. Because out here, sleep is not about rest. It is about making it to the next day without giving someone an easy shot. You glance over at the patch of ground you just crawled out of, and you already know tonight you will be digging again somewhere else. The earth does not care if you are tired. The war does not either. You just find another spot, put your entrenching tool to work, and carve out your next temporary piece of safety. And while you are thinking about where that will be, you hear someone say it is time to move, which means it is time to think about how to survive the next few hours without ending up in a hole you cannot climb out of. You are up now, though. Up is generous. It is more like you are vertical because you have to be, not because your body wanted to cooperate. Your knees are still protesting from being folded in that hole all night. Your back feels scraped raw, and your eyes burn from the combination of fatigue and the fine grit of dirt clinging to your lashes. There is no morning stretch, no lazy yawn, no wandering into a kitchen to pour yourself coffee. Out here, the first thing you do is check if everything that matters is still attached. Your gear, your weapon, your boots. Then you check the perimeter with the same suspicion you would give a stranger approaching your car in the dark. Hygiene is not about freshening up. It is about damage control. Your face feels tacky from dried sweat. You reach for your canteen, not to drink yet, but to splash a little water into your hands and swipe it across your face. The water is warm, metallic, with the faint chemical tang of iodine tablets. If you are unlucky, the tablets did not dissolve completely, and a bitter, chalky taste lingers on your lips. You spit, but it does not help. That is as close to washing up as you will get before you move out. If there is time, and sometimes there is not, you light a cigarette. Not because it relaxes you, but because nicotine jolts you awake in a way the damp air never could. You shield the match with both hands, careful not to let a flicker of flame betray you in the pre-dawn dark. The first drag rasps down your throat, and you are reminded that your lungs are already straining just to draw breath in this air. Smoke blends with the damp scent of the jungle, the faint sting of gun oil, the sourness of sweat. Out here, you do not smell good or bad. You simply smell like the place itself, earth, decay, powder, and smoke. You check your weapon again, because you always check your weapon again. The jungle has already tried to ruin it overnight. You will not give it another chance. You pull the bolt back just enough to see that the chamber is clear and ready. The motion is automatic now, etched into your muscles. A cloth glides across the metal, and you feel the faint drag of condensation. A few drops of oil, a wipe, and it is serviceable again. Ready for now. In this climate, ready never lasts more than an hour. There is no breakfast waiting on a table. Someone passes you a bundle cold rice wrapped in banana leaf if fortune is on your side, a few strips of dried fish if it is not. You eat in silence, because food is not about taste here. It is about fuel. You spit a couple of tiny bones into the dirt and chew the rest slowly, washing it down with a sip of water you wish you did not have to waste. The mouthful is dry and salty, forcing your hand. While you eat, your eyes scan. You are not looking for anything in particular, just for movement, for the slight change in sound that does not belong. The jungle is alive with noise, and its noise is oddly comforting. It means things are ordinary. When that sound cuts off, when birds stop and insects still themselves, your stomach tightens. Silence here rarely means anything good. You check your boots. You never took them off, but you still tap the heel against the ground in case something decided to crawl in. That is not paranoia, it is survival. A scorpion, a centipede, a spider, they can ruin you without a single shot fired. You wiggle your toes inside soggy socks that have not been dry since the first day you put them on. If there is time, you pull the fabric down and inspect the pale, wrinkled flesh beneath. You press with your thumb, testing for tenderness. If it is bad, you might change socks, though a dry pair is rare. Around you, everyone does the same ritual. One man wipes his face with a rag that looks like a shredded shirt. Another crouches over his weapon, breaking it down for a quick clean. A third scans the tree line while chewing from a small packet. No one talks. It is too early, too dangerous. There is also the mental check. You think about where you are going, what ground you will cover, and whether you will cross known danger zones. You remind yourself not to grow careless just because the last few days were quiet. Quiet is the enemy's waiting room. Your pack comes up onto your shoulders, the weight dragging on bone and muscle. It is not heavy in numbers, maybe 40 pounds, but out here it presses down like stone. The straps dig and bite until you shift them, and they will feel comfortable again for perhaps 100 steps before they start to gnaw once more. You run through the contents in your head rifle, ammunition, grenades, water, rations, first aid, socks, maybe 1 or 2 personal items. Nothing you cannot carry, nothing you cannot abandon if you must run. Every ounce is a punishment waiting to reveal itself later in the day. The squad leader raises his hand and signals. The wordless command is enough. Cigarettes are crushed into the dirt. Canteens sealed, packs tightened. You fall into line, leaving space between you and the man in front of you. Just enough that if one of you steps on a mine, the other might still walk away. That thought is part of the routine, too. Out here, you think about things you would never allow yourself to think about anywhere else. The path ahead is barely a path, more a suggestion of where to place your feet between the tangles of vines and the low-hanging branches. The air is thick enough to make you sweat after 3 steps. You can already feel the first bead roll down the back of your neck. The day has not even started, but you know you will be soaked through before the hour is up. You adjust your grip on your rifle, keep your eyes moving, and remind yourself that in this place, survival is not one big decision. It is 1,000 tiny ones you have to make right over and over. From the moment you open your eyes to the moment you try to close them again, and sometimes even in between. Somewhere ahead, the jungle opens just enough to let in a shaft of sunlight. It lights up the steam rising from the damp ground, making it look almost peaceful. But you know better than to take it that way. Peace here is an illusion, and you have already got the sweat dripping into your eyes to prove it. Breakfast is not something you look forward to out here. It is not pancakes, bacon, and coffee. It is not even a guaranteed event. It is whatever is in your pack, or whatever the squad can scrounge before it is time to move again. You might go days without what most people would even call a meal. Out here, breakfast is just a word that means put something in your stomach before it starts eating itself. If you are lucky, and by lucky, I mean the supply lines have not been cut, you get rations. For the Vietnamese soldier, that usually means a tightly packed bundle of cold rice, maybe a pinch of salt if someone thought ahead, and if fortune is really smiling, a bit of dried fish or meat. The rice is usually wrapped in banana leaves, which sounds nice until you realize it is not for flavor. It is just the only packaging you have. You untie the string, peel back the leaf, and there it is. A dense, sticky block of rice that has been compressed until it could probably be used as building material. If you are unlucky, it is just the rice. No protein, no extras. And if you are really unlucky, it is rice that has been sitting a bit too long in this humidity, just starting to go sour. You eat it anyway, because not eating means having even less energy for the day ahead. You pinch off a lump with your fingers, pop it in your mouth, and chew slowly. It sticks to your teeth, your tongue, the roof of your mouth. You chase it with a sip of warm iodine-flavored water, not because you are thirsty, but because you need the help to get it down. Sometimes there is a piece of dried fish tucked into the rice. It is thin, salty, and tough enough to give your jaw a workout. The salt is good. You sweat so much out here that without it, you would cramp up before midday. The downside is the fish tastes exactly like something that has been drying in the open air for days. The smell clings to your hands no matter how many times you wipe them on your pants. If you are feeling fancy, you might wrap a bit of the fish in the rice and pretend you are eating something more than just survival fuel. Every now and then, you get something different. Maybe a scrap of dried pork if someone's family sent a care package. Maybe a boiled egg if you have passed through a friendly village. These are rare enough that you remember them for weeks afterward, talking about that one morning you had real food like it was a story worth telling around a fire. Of course, the jungle has its own menu, and sometimes breakfast is whatever you can find. That might mean foraging for edible plants, shooting a bird if you have got the time and ammunition to spare, or trapping something small overnight. But foraging takes time, hunting makes noise, and traps do not always pay off. More often than not, it is back to rice, dried fish, and whatever imagination you can apply to make it seem like anything else. The worst mornings are the ones after you have been moving all night. You did not stop to sleep, which means you did not stop to eat either. You start the next day already running on fumes, the emptiness in your gut gnawing at you, while your legs still have miles to cover. You might dig into your rations mid-march, squatting in the mud for 30 seconds, to shove a handful of rice into your mouth before catching up with the squad. Cooking in the field is rare, but not impossible. If you have a moment of safety, someone might light a small smokeless fire and heat water for tea or soup. Soup might be stretching the word. It is usually hot water with some chopped greens or wild herbs, maybe a scrap of meat if someone has it. But after days of cold food, even that thin broth feels like a luxury. The problem is, fires make smoke, and smoke makes you visible out here. A cooking fire is basically sending up a flare that says shoot here. Your hands are never really clean when you eat. There is always a thin layer of grime, even after you splash water over them. The rice sticks to your fingers, and the dirt clings to the rice. You stop noticing after a while. Dirt is just another seasoning. You have eaten worse without realizing it. And the bugs, always the bugs. The second you unwrap anything, they are there. Ants, flies, mosquitoes, all drawn to the smell of food like it is the only thing they care about. You learn to eat fast, not to savor, because every extra second is another chance for something to land in your breakfast. And if it does, you might just eat it anyway, rather than waste time making it out. There is no sitting in a circle and chatting while you eat. Everyone is too busy scanning the tree line, checking their gear, or shoveling food in before it is time to move again. You do not talk with your mouth full because you are not talking at all. Breakfast is not social. It is tactical. On the rare days you are in a secure enough position to eat without rushing, it almost feels wrong. You sit there chewing slowly, and your brain starts to notice the aches in your body, the weight of your gear, the dampness in your socks. You think about home, about the smell of fresh bread or hot soup, about flavors that are not just salt and starch. And then you stop thinking about it, because that way lies distraction. And distraction out here gets you killed. By the time you have swallowed the last bite, you are already on your feet, tucking the banana leaf back into your pack to pack out later, or tossing it into the undergrowth. There is no cleanup, no brushing crumbs off the table. The jungle takes whatever you drop, and you keep moving. Breakfast does not give you energy. It just keeps you from collapsing too soon. And as you start walking again, the weight in your stomach feels heavy, not satisfying. You know it will not last. By midday, you will be hungry again. Maybe hungrier, because the heat will burn through whatever you just ate in no time. But for now, you have done the morning's most important job. You have put something in your gut so you can keep going. And keep going is exactly what you are about to do, because the jungle ahead is not getting any smaller. And you still have a long way to go before you see another place to stop. Your breakfast is barely sitting in your stomach before it is time to check your gear one last time and make sure everything on you is where it needs to be. Dressing for war out here is not about style, comfort, or even looking uniform. It is about whether what you are wearing will get you through the next 12 hours without falling apart, cutting you open, or cooking you alive. Spoiler, it is going to do at least two of those things. Your uniform is nothing fancy. For a Vietnamese soldier, it is usually a simple cotton or cotton blend shirt and pants in olive or green. Light enough to breathe, heavy enough to soak up sweat until it feels like you are wearing wet cardboard. When it is dry, it is rough against the skin. When it is wet, and it is always wet, it clings to you like a second layer of skin you never asked for. Cotton was supposed to be breathable, but here in this heat, it just traps the humidity against you and refuses to let go. The first few minutes after you put it on in the morning are the least bad. By the time the sun is properly up, the shirt is already sticking to your chest and back. Your pants are glued to your thighs, and every step rubs damp fabric over the same raw spots you have been nursing for days. Chafing is not an if here, it is a how bad. The salt from your sweat mixes with the constant friction and turns your skin into a permanent rash. You can shift your gear around, adjust your belt, tug at the seams, but it is only a matter of time before you are scratching at it between steps. The boots are another story. They are heavy, even without water in them, which is almost never the case. For the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong, boots were often made from recycled truck tires. Durable, yes, but about as comfortable as strapping 2 slabs of rubber to your feet and hoping for the best. For South Vietnamese soldiers, or those with better supply, you might get proper combat boots, but they still fill with water every time you wade through a stream or march in the rain, which is constantly. You do not just put them on. You brace yourself for the moment your feet slide back into something that has not been dry in weeks. Socks are a precious commodity. The lucky ones have a couple of pairs to rotate. Most do not. Wet socks mean soft, broken down skin, which means blisters that pop and turn into open wounds. You wrap your feet in cloth if you have to, or you just push through and try not to limp. Limping draws attention out here. Moving slow can get you killed faster than anything. Then there is the belt. It is not just holding your pants up. It is holding your life together. Ammo pouches, a canteen, maybe a small first aid kit, sometimes a sidearm if you are issued one. Every extra pound hanging off it digs into your hips as you walk. And the belt itself has a habit of riding up or twisting just enough to grind into your lower back. You keep it tight because loose gear rattles, and noise here is an invitation. If you are carrying grenades, they hang off your chest rig or belt in a way that always seems to catch on vines. Every time you bend over, they knock into your ribs. You ignore it because the alternative is not having them when you need them. The chest rig itself is another layer of fabric to trap heat, and it rubs against your shoulders until you have got deep grooves in your skin. Some soldiers wear a scarf or bandana around the neck, partly to wipe sweat, partly to keep insects off, partly just out of habit. The scarf ends up soaked within an hour, its damp weight against your collarbone doing nothing to help the heat. But you keep it anyway, because even a small barrier between you and the bugs is worth it. The helmet, if you have one, is heavy and never quite fits right. Sweat runs down from under the rim and drips into your eyes, stinging them, and you cannot push it up without risking it catching the light. Many North Vietnamese soldiers skipped helmets altogether, favoring lighter soft caps, but those offered no real protection against shrapnel or debris. Either way, your head ends up hot and itchy, and you scratch under the edge when no one is looking. By the time you are fully dressed and loaded down with gear, you feel like you have already done a workout. Every strap digs somewhere. Every seam rubs. You shift your rifle from hand to hand, adjusting the sling so it does not cut into your shoulder too soon. You do not think about how much you are sweating. It is constant, and there is nothing you can do about it. The only thing you think about is how to keep moving without, the gear becoming the thing that takes you out before the enemy does. You glance down the line. Everyone looks the same. Uniforms stained dark in patches from sweat. Boots caked in mud. Faces set in that blank, half-alert expression that means they are already bracing for the day ahead. No one is comfortable. No one ever is. The best you can hope for is tolerable, and even that does not last long. The squad leader gives a small wave, and the line starts to move. You step forward, the damp weight of your uniform settling around you like a reminder that this is not about comfort. It is about lasting long enough to see another day, another breakfast, another chance to climb out of another hole in the ground. The heat is already building, and the day has not even hit its stride yet. You have barely taken 10 steps before the reality of this place starts reminding you that it is not just trying to wear you down. It is trying to wreck the only thing that keeps you alive. Your rifle is not just a tool. It is the difference between making it home and ending up face down in the mud. And the jungle hates rifles. It hates moving parts. It hates clean metal. It hates anything that is supposed to work in a predictable way. Out here, weapon maintenance is not a chore you do once in a while. It is a full-time battle you fight alongside the actual war. The air alone is enough to start the war against your weapon. The humidity is thick enough to bead moisture on metal within minutes. 1 second your rifle is fine, the next it is slick with condensation. Leave it for a few hours without wiping it down, and you will see rust spots starting, like the jungle is growing its own little colonies on your barrel. It does not matter if it is an AK, an M16, or a bolt-action relic. Out here, all guns are equal victims. Every soldier develops their own rhythm for keeping it in shape. You check it constantly. Wipe it down with a rag that is never truly dry. Run the cleaning rod through the barrel whenever you stop for more than a few minutes. Oil it sparingly. Too much oil just collects dirt and grit until the action feels like it is full of sand. Too little, and you will hear that ugly metal on metal scrape the next time you pull the bolt back. Mud is the real enemy. Step wrong and slip knee deep into a hidden puddle, and you are spending the next hour stripping your rifle down, scooping muck out of the receiver with your fingernail, and praying you did not miss any. Even a little dry dirt in the wrong place can jam it when you need it most. You think about how back home you would never treat a piece of machinery like this, but back home does not have vines slapping you in the face while you are trying to check a firing pin. Then there is the rain. Out here, rain does not fall. It pours in sheets that soak you to the bone in seconds. You try to shield your rifle under your arm or wrap it in oilcloth, but if you are moving, you cannot keep it dry. The water runs into every gap, drips down into the magazine well, and pools inside the action. You can clean it 100 times and still find damp spots days later. Some soldiers keep a rag tied to their sling so they can wipe it down without digging through their pack. The rag is always damp, but it is better than nothing. You get used to working by feel, checking that the safety is not jammed, the magazine is seated right, the bolt is smooth. You do it without thinking, like a reflex over and over every few minutes. There is no luxury of a workshop or a proper bench. Your work surface is whatever you can clear. A flat rock, the top of your pack, your own lap while crouching in the mud. You lose track of how many times you have dropped a spring or a pin into the undergrowth and spent the next 10 minutes on your knees, combing through leaves like you are panning for gold. Lose the wrong part and your rifle becomes a very heavy club. The jungle has its own way of finding weak points. Vines snag slings. Branches catch on the charging handle. Fine powdery dirt gets into the smallest gaps and grinds at the metal until you can feel the resistance with every pull. Even the sweat from your own hands is a problem. Salt eats away at the finish, leaving little spots that corrode faster than the rest. Gloves help, but they get soaked too. And once they are wet, they just make everything slippery. And you are not maintaining it in a quiet, clean environment. You are doing it while you are tired, hungry, and constantly aware that at any second, someone could open fire on you. You learn to strip and reassemble it fast, not for efficiency's sake, but because the longer it is apart, the more chance something nasty falls into it. The rifle never leaves your side. You sleep with it in your hands, across your chest, or leaning against the wall of your foxhole, where you can grab it instantly. Even then, you wake up in the night and check it by touch, making sure the sling is still where it should be, the magazine still locked. It is the first thing you pick up in the morning, the last thing you put down at night. Out here, you do not own the rifle. The rifle owns you. You have heard stories of soldiers who did not take it seriously. Men who skipped the cleaning because they were too tired, or because it looked fine, or because they thought they would be safe for a while. Those stories usually end with the same sentence: his gun jammed when he needed it. Nobody tells you the rest because they do not have to. You can fill in the ending yourself. So you keep wiping, keep oiling, keep checking, even when your arms ache from carrying it all day. The war does not pause so you can fix a jam. And the jungle does not care if you are careful. It will keep trying to ruin your weapon as long as you are in it, which means you will keep fighting both wars, the one with the enemy and the one with the climate, until you are out of here or you are out of luck. And while you are running that last patch through the barrel, someone calls for the squad to move out again. You sling it over your shoulder, feel the weight settle into its familiar spot, and start walking into the green wall ahead. You do not even have to think about it. You will be checking it again in another 5 minutes, just like always. The line starts moving, and you fall in without a word. The jungle does not make room for you. You force your way through it one slow, deliberate step at a time. The path is not really a path. It is more like a slightly less tangled stretch of vegetation where other boots have crushed enough leaves to make a faint suggestion of direction. Sometimes the man in front disappears into the green, and you follow the sound of movement more than the sight of him. Your first few steps are not bad. You are still fresh from the morning routine. Your legs have loosened up a bit. Your pack's weight has not fully sunk into your shoulders yet. But within minutes, the heat grabs you like a damp blanket wrapped around your entire body. The air feels heavier the deeper you go. You sweat without even trying. Beads run down your forehead, into your eyes, soaking into your shirt until the fabric clings like glue. The canopy above blocks out most of the sunlight, so you walk in this strange dim light, the kind where shadows seem to shift even when nothing is there. Every few steps, a vine whips against your arm or neck. Sometimes it is just a leaf brushing you. Sometimes it is thorned, leaving a thin line of blood that the sweat quickly stings. The undergrowth pushes back at you constantly. Bamboo stalks, thick ferns, branches that snap back into the next man's face. It is not just tiring, it is irritating in a way that wears you down before you even notice it happening. Every sound matters. The rhythmic crunch of boots on soft earth, the click of a rifle sling settling, the faint slosh of water in someone's canteen. Somewhere nearby, the buzz of insects grows louder, higher pitched, until you realize they are swarming around your head. You swat without thinking, but the moment you stop, they are back. Then there is the footing. The ground changes every few yards. Soft mud that sucks at your boots. Slick roots that threaten to take you down. Sudden dips into shallow streams you cannot see until you are ankle deep in brown water. Sometimes the mud grabs hard enough that you have to yank your foot out. The sucking sound loud enough to make everyone freeze for a split second, just in case it was not mud making that noise. The weight of your gear becomes a living thing after the first hour. Your shoulders ache. The straps cut deeper into the muscle. Your lower back twinges every time you shift. Your rifle sling bites into your neck, but carrying it in your hands for too long just makes your arms throb. You switch it back and forth, looking for the least painful option, but there is not one. The pace is not fast, but it is relentless. You move for 10 minutes, pause for 30 seconds, then move again. The stops are not for rest, they are for listening. Every time the squad halts, you freeze in place, scanning the tree line, ears straining for anything that does not sound like the jungle. You do not want to hear silence, because silence means trouble. You do not want to hear voices either, unless they are the ones you know. Sometimes the terrain forces you to crawl. You drop to your hands and knees, rifle slung across your back, and worm your way through narrow gaps in the brush. The mud smears your arms and face, it's into your gear. Spiders drop onto you from above, not because they care about you, but because you disturbed the branch they were living on. You do not have time to panic. You just brush them off and keep moving. The bugs never stop. Mosquitoes swarm your exposed skin. Their whine a constant reminder that you are in their territory. Leeches latch on when you cross wet ground, and you might not even notice until you feel a slow, warm trickle of blood down your leg. Pulling them off leaves a small open wound, just one more place for infection to start. You have given up trying to stay clean. You just try to stay functional. The smell of the jungle is a mix of damp earth, rotting vegetation, and sweat. Yours and everyone else's. Occasionally, the breeze shifts and you catch the sharp tang of something else. Sometimes it is gunpowder from a distant firefight. Sometimes it is decay from something dead nearby. You do not investigate. You just keep walking, because stopping without a reason is how you get left behind. Hours blur together. You lose track of how far you have gone, or how long you have been walking. All you know is your feet hurt, your shoulders hurt, and your head aches from the constant tension of scanning every shadow. The heat builds until you feel like your skin is cooking under your uniform, and then the clouds roll in, and the rain starts. It is not a light drizzle. It is a wall of water that soaks you instantly, runs down into your boots, and turns every step into a squelch. The mud deepens, the ground gets slicker, and every step takes twice the effort. The rain does not cool you down. It only adds weight. Your uniform clings tighter. Your gear straps cut deeper. Your rifle feels heavier. You squint against the water, running into your eyes, and keep moving, because no one stops for weather out here. The rain might even be worse, because it dulls your hearing, masking the sounds you would normally pick up. You have to watch even harder now, because the enemy knows the rain can hide them as well as it hides you. Your legs begin to feel like they are running on autopilot, your mind drifting in and out of focus. You snap back every time the man in front raises a fist for the line to stop. You freeze, heart thudding, eyes scanning, waiting for the signal to move again. Sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes you hear a distant burst of gunfire muffled by the trees. Either way, you keep going because there is no choice. The worst part is not the heat or the mud or the bugs. It is the constant awareness that at any moment the jungle could erupt into chaos. 1 second you are trudging through vines, the next you are diving for cover. That tension never leaves you. It builds in your shoulders, in your jaw, in the back of your neck, until even standing still feels exhausting. By the time the squad finally pauses for more than a minute, you are drenched, sore, and already thinking about how much farther there is to go. This is not even the end of the day. This is just the march, and the jungle is not done with you yet. You can walk for hours out here without seeing another human being, but you will never be alone. The jungle is always touching you, crawling on you, biting you. It is not just uncomfortable, it is constant. Every few steps, something new finds its way onto your skin, your clothes, or your gear. No matter how many times you brush them away, they return, persistent, endless. The first thing you notice is the mosquitoes. They are everywhere, all the time. The air hums with them, a high-pitched whine that gets inside your head until you cannot tell if it is real or if you are imagining it. They do not just come at night. They linger in the heat of the day, in the middle of the rain, whenever they choose. You swat 1 and 2 more land in the same spot before your hand is even lowered. They go for any exposed skin, hands, neck, face, but they are not shy about biting through your clothes either. The thin cotton of your uniform might as well be paper to them. You can feel the sting as they pierce through, then the itch that flares up seconds later. You carry repellent, but it does not last. Sweat washes it away within the hour, and the jungle air takes care of the rest. Some of the mosquitoes carry malaria. Others carry dengue fever. You take the pills you are issued, but they are no guarantee. The pills taste like chemicals and turn your stomach, forcing you to choke them down with warm water that already tastes like iodine. Even then, every headache, every shiver, every ache makes you wonder if it is the beginning of something far worse. Then there are the leeches. They are not the fat, sluggish kind from books. These are small, fast, and clever, able to find you before you even notice them. Crossing a stream or stepping through wet grass is enough to let them latch on silently. They work their way into your socks, up your legs, even under your belt. You do not notice them until you see a thin streak of blood down your skin or feel a slow drip inside your boots. Pulling them away is not difficult, but it is never clean. They leave small wounds that bleed steadily, reminders of what they have taken. Out here, blood means two things. You are losing what you cannot spare, and you are leaving a scent in a place where such a trail is never safe. The first time you find one, you feel disgust. After the 10th, you barely react. They fade into the background, like the mud, like the heat. Ants are another matter. You assume they are harmless until you step on the wrong kind. Some bite, some sting, some do both. Their trails wind across the ground and climb every tree. Disturb them, and they pour out in seconds. One moment you are walking, the next you are covered, slapping at your arms and legs as they bite through the thin fabric of your uniform. Spiders make their presence known in both large and small ways. Long-legged ones wait in webs strung across the trail, ready to brush against your face. Smaller ones vanish into your gear before you even see them. You learn to look upward as often as you look down, because walking face first into a web means feeling something large and unsettled crawling across your skin. You brush it away quickly, trying not to think about whether it is poisonous. Scorpions lurk beneath rocks and inside crevices, and sometimes even in your boots if you leave them on the ground. You get into the habit of tapping your boots before you put them on, even if you have kept them on your feet through the night. It is not paranoia, it is survival. One sting can take you out of action for hours, and hours are costly here. Snakes belong to the jungle as well. Some are harmless, some are not, and you rarely see them clearly before they vanish into the brush without a sound. You never go looking to find out. The rule is simple. If it moves like a snake, you give it space. The bites, the stings, the leech wounds, they do not heal quickly. The humidity keeps everything damp, and dirt seeps into every scratch. Even the smallest cut can swell, turn red, and leak pus within a day. You clean them when you can, but clean in the jungle is a relative term. You try only to keep them from becoming bad enough to slow you down. At night, the bugs do not disappear. They simply change. Mosquitoes thicken in number. Moths the size of your hand flap against your face. Beetles land with a weight you feel even through your shirt. If you are lucky, you have a net, but the net does not stop everything. The jungle always finds a way in. You stop thinking about comfort. You stop thinking about escape. The goal becomes management. Scratch carefully, without tearing skin. Brush leeches away before they drink too much. Shake every piece of gear before lifting it. You cannot win against the jungle. At best, you can hold even. Every step, every pause, every breath is shared with something that wants a piece of you. The worst part is that these creatures do not care who you are or what side you are on. They are not part of the war. They are simply part of this place. You are the outsider. You are the one being fed upon. By the time the squad stops again, you have fresh bites on your neck, 2 leech marks on your ankle, and something small still moving beneath your sleeve. You shake your arm until it flies free. Then you take another drink of warm, chemical water and prepare yourself to keep moving. The jungle is not finished with you yet. The jungle never really goes quiet, but it knows how to shift its voice. You grow used to the constant buzz of insects, the rustle of leaves, the occasional bird call. It becomes the background hum that blends into your thoughts. But when it changes, when the birds stop singing or the buzz falls away, your body senses it before your ears do. Something sharp fills the silence, and the tone of the jungle shifts from steady to alarming. It does not always begin with a roar. Sometimes it is only a single dry crack in the distance, a rifle shot echoing faintly between the trees, so soft you doubt it was real. Sometimes it is closer, a sharp pop that freezes everyone in place. Other times, there is no warning. 1 second you are moving a vine from your path. The next the air tears apart around you and your ears are ringing. Explosions here are not neat or cinematic. They are chaotic, ugly, and terrifyingly close. The first one hits like a fist to the chest, a deep concussive thump that rattles your teeth and blurs your vision. Leaves and dirt rain down. The taste of earth and metal fills your mouth before you even fall low. Instinct takes over. You drop into the mud, hands on your rifle, eyes scanning for movement even as echoes fade. Voices shout in the distance, orders swallowed by the next strike. Mortar or worse. You do not always hear them. Sometimes they arrive as nothing more than a thin whistle, almost delicate. Then the ground erupts in front of you, sending shards of wood, rock, and metal outward in all directions. You hit the dirt and curl in, trying to make yourself small, but you still feel the sting of tiny fragments hitting your arms and legs. If you are unlucky, it is not fragments, it is something bigger. Gunfire blends into the explosions like they were made to go together. Short bursts, long bursts, single cracks. They all sound different depending on the weapon, but in the moment, they are just signals that you are in it now. You pick out the direction as best you can. Return fire if you see anything to shoot at. But mostly you are keeping your head down and your eyes open. The jungle twists sound. A shot from behind can sound like it came from ahead. An explosion to your left can echo from the right. You cannot trust your ears completely, but you do not stop listening. You cannot afford to. Sometimes it is an ambush. Sharp, quick, over in a minute, leaving nothing but smoke and silence. Other times it is drawn out, a series of bursts and blasts with minutes of tense waiting in between. You keep expecting the next one. You keep flinching. Every time a branch snaps, the smell changes too. The thick, damp air of the jungle gets cut through with the sharp bite of gunpowder, the acrid tang of smoke, the faint but unmistakable scent of burning. It mixes with the smell of churned earth, with the sweat pouring down your face, with the faint copper of blood if someone close to you has been hit. You stop thinking about the heat, the bugs, the chafing. Everything you were complaining about a minute ago is gone. Now it is just about not being where the next round lands. You push forward if ordered. You hold your ground if told. And you try to keep your breathing steady enough to hear what is coming next. When it ends, it does not feel like an end. There is no dramatic music fading out. It just stops, like someone cut the sound mid-track. The birds are still gone. The insects are still quiet, and your ears are still ringing. You stay low because you know it might start again in 10 seconds, or in 30 minutes, or not at all. There is no schedule to it. The jungle slowly starts making noise again, piece by piece. A leaf rustles in the wind. In the distance, a cicada buzzes. Someone near you shifts their weight, and you realize you have been gripping your rifle so hard your hands ache. You flex your fingers, wipe the sweat off your face, and get back in formation. And just like that, the soundtrack goes back to the hum of insects. But you know the explosions are still part of it. They can cut in at any moment. And when they do, you will drop right back into the mud like you never left. When the shooting stops and the shouting dies down, the next thing that hits you is not relief. It is hunger. The kind that sneaks up and wraps around your gut after hours of walking. sweating and holding your breath through bursts of chaos. It is not the kind of hunger you can ignore with a sip of water or a stick of gum. It is the kind that makes you pull out whatever you have left and eat it, no matter where you are or what it tastes like. Food out here is not about flavor. It is about getting calories into you before you move again. You do not eat because you want to. You eat because if you do not, you will start to feel that heaviness in your legs, that slow reaction time in your hands. And out here, slow is just another word for dead. If you are lucky, you have still got part of your ration from the morning. Cold rice, maybe some dried fish, or a scrap of meat wrapped in banana leaf. You crouch down in the mud, or sit on a log slick with rain, unwrapping it like you are opening a gift you already know is going to disappoint you. The rice is clumped together, sticky and dense with the faint smell of the leaf it was wrapped in. The fish, if you have got it, is salty enough to make your mouth dry, the texture halfway between leather and wood. Sometimes you have something canned, maybe sardines in tomato sauce, maybe condensed milk if supplies were generous. The sardines are oily, the sauce too sweet, but they slide down easy enough. The milk is thick and cloying, coating your mouth in sugar. It is strange to get something sweet after so much salt and starch, but you do not question it. Calories are calories. Foraging happens too. Maybe someone spotted wild greens or bamboo shoots along the way, hacked them down with a machete, and boiled them quickly in a battered pot if there is time. They do not taste like much, but the crunch feels good after days of soft, sticky rice. On rare days, you might get lucky and trap or shoot something, snake, bird, even a rat. The meat gets cooked fast over a small, low fire, seasoned only with smoke and whatever you can rub on it. If you are desperate, you skip the cooking altogether. The jungle has fruit, but you have to know what is safe. Eat the wrong thing, and you will be doubled over with cramps before the day is half over. Eat the right thing, and it is the closest thing to a treat you will have. Mango, banana, papaya, they are out here, but not always where you are. And you do not wander off looking for them unless you are willing to risk meeting something with sharper teeth than you. Most meals are eaten fast, not because you are in a hurry, but because leaving food out is an invitation to trouble. The smell carries. Ants will swarm whatever you drop. Flies arrive in seconds, buzzing over your hands and face as you eat. Sometimes you wave them off. Sometimes you just keep chewing and let them land. Your hands are never clean. Even if you rinse them in a stream, there is always a layer of grime that does not go away. You eat with it anyway. Dirt gets under your nails, into the folds of the banana leaf, onto the rice. You stop noticing after a while. You have probably eaten worse without knowing it. Water is the hardest part. You cannot wash food down with just anything. Streams and ponds look clean enough, but you know better. You stick to your canteen, even if the water inside tastes like chemicals. Sometimes it is warm enough to feel like you are drinking from a tea kettle. But it is safer than gambling on something that could put you in a fevered stupor for days. After you have eaten, you feel the brief weight of food in your stomach, a reminder you have done the bare minimum to keep going. It is not satisfying. You are not full, but the edge is gone, and that is what matters. You pack up whatever is left, stow the wrappers or leaves, and wipe your hands on your pants. The quiet that follows is never really quiet. Even when you are done eating, you are listening. You hear the others shifting, the faint click of a rifle being checked, the soft patter of water dripping from the canopy. The jungle does not care if you have just eaten. The war does not care either. You could be chewing your last mouthful when the next explosion hits. So, you eat quickly. You eat without looking away from the tree line. And you get ready to move again. Because out here, food is not a break. It is just another step in staying alive. The thing about eating out here is it always makes you thirsty. And the thing about being thirsty out here is you cannot just fix it. Back home, thirst is an inconvenience. Here, it is a gamble. Every sip you take is a calculated risk, because the water in this jungle does not just cool you down. It can drop you to your knees with fever, cramps, and worse. You carry a canteen, maybe two if you are lucky, strapped to your belt where you can grab it without breaking stride. The water inside has already been treated with purification tablets, which means it tastes like you have dunked a rusty nail into a swimming pool. The smell hits your nose before it hits your tongue. A sharp chemical bite that makes you hesitate even though you cannot afford to. You drink it anyway because the alternative is far worse. Out here, water is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. You are surrounded by streams, ponds, and rainwater collecting in big leaves, but most of it is loaded with bacteria, parasites, or worse. You can look at a pool so clear you can see the bottom and still know that upstream a dead animal might be rotting in it. Or maybe someone dumped waste there an hour ago. Or maybe it has just been sitting long enough to become a breeding ground for every kind of sickness the jungle can throw at you. The safest bet is water that has been boiled, but boiling takes time, fire, and a place safe enough to stop. 3 things you rarely have all at once. You might get to do it if you are near a base or a hidden camp, but out in the field, most of your water comes from whatever you can fill your canteen with and treat on the move. Sometimes you can filter it through a cloth before adding tablets, catching the bigger chunks of dirt or insects. Sometimes you just scoop and swallow because you cannot stay in one place long enough to do anything else. Rainwater sounds like the easiest option. Just hold something out during a downpour and collect it. The problem is the rain carries whatever it hits first. Leaves, branches, animal droppings straight into your container. And it is not like you can hold out a clean cup. Everything you own is already coated in mud and sweat. By the time you have got enough to drink, it is no safer than the stream. You have seen what bad water can do. A man drinks from the wrong place, and by the next morning he is doubled over, sweating, shivering, unable to keep food down. Sometimes it is dysentery. Sometimes it is something worse. Either way, out here getting sick is not just miserable. It is dangerous. You cannot afford to be weak, and you definitely cannot afford to lag behind. A bad case of waterborne illness can kill you outright, but it is more likely to get you killed because you cannot keep up when it matters. The heat makes it worse. You are sweating all the time, losing water faster than you can replace it. Your mouth goes dry, your lips crack, your tongue feels thick. You think about your canteen constantly, weighing how much you have left against how far there is to go before you can refill. You sip when you can, never gulp. If you are smart, you ration it so you do not end up staring at an empty container halfway through the day. Sometimes you have to drink from a bad source anyway. You crouch by the edge of a stream, fill your canteen, drop in the tablets, and shake it hard enough to mix. Then you wait, not long enough for it to really be safe, just long enough for you to feel like you tried. You take the first mouthful with a grease-tasting mud and chemicals, swallowing before you can think too much about what else might be in it. The worst is when the water is warm. It is not refreshing. It is like drinking weak tea made from sweat and dirt. But it is still better than nothing. You choke it down, wipe your mouth with the back of your hand, and keep moving. You stop thinking about clean water after a while. Out here, there is just water that is less likely to make you sick. That is the best you can hope for. You drink it, you hope for the best, and you get back to watching the tree line. Because no matter how thirsty you are, the jungle will not wait for you to finish a drink. The rain does not just happen here. It moves in and takes over. In the monsoon season, it is not an occasional downpour. It is a wall of water that settles in for days, sometimes weeks, and turns everything into a wet, slippery, rotting mess. You do not wait for it to stop, because it does not. You just keep moving through it until you forget what dry feels like. It starts with a change in the air. The heat does not go away, but the humidity shifts from bad to breathing through a soaked towel. The sky darkens. The jungle dims, and then the rain hits. Not drops, sheets. In seconds, you are soaked all the way through. Your uniform clings tighter than ever, plastered to your skin. Your boots fill up until every step squelches. You can feel the water slosh between your toes. But you keep walking because stopping does not help. The ground turns to mud almost instantly. Not the kind you can just scrape off, but the deep-sucking kind that grabs at your boots and tries to pull them off your feet. You take shorter steps, trying not to lose balance on the slick roots hidden under the surface. Every few yards, someone stumbles, catches themselves, and keeps going without a word. The rain drowns out sound. You cannot hear much beyond the constant roar of water hitting leaves, splattering on your helmet, running down your pack. It is almost comforting until you remember it is masking every other noise you normally listen for. You could be walking straight into an ambush and not hear it until the first shot. Everything you own gets heavier. Your gear, your weapon, your pack, they all take on water like sponges. The straps dig deeper into your shoulders. The weight pulls at you with every step. Even your rifle feels different, the sling biting into your neck where the fabric is already rubbed raw. You wipe the rain from your eyes, knowing it will be back in seconds. Resting does not help. There is no shelter, no dry spot to sit. You crouch under a tree, but the rain still comes through in big cold drops that roll down your collar. If you are lucky enough to find a tarp or a bit of cover, it is already sagging under the weight of pooled water. The ground beneath it is just as wet as everywhere else. Sleeping in the rain is worse. You crawl into your foxhole, and it is already half full of muddy water. You try to bail it out with your helmet, but it is a losing battle. You end up lying in the shallow pool, shivering despite the heat, feeling the water seep through every layer you have. You keep your rifle propped up on the edge, praying it does not slip in with you. The constant damp works its way into your body. Your skin softens. Your feet wrinkle until they look like they have been soaking in a tub for hours. Blisters turn into open sores. Cuts never dry out, never heal, just stay red and angry. Your hands lose their grip from the wet, making every task harder. Loading a magazine, tying a strap, even holding on to your weapon. Food gets harder too. Fires are almost impossible to start. And if you do manage one, the smoke is a beacon. Most of the time, you just eat cold rations in the rain. The water drips into your food as you chew. Everything tastes the same, wet. The rain finds its way into everything. Your pack, your ammo, even the inside of sealed pouches somehow ends up damp. Paper maps turn to pulp. Bandages get soggy before you can use them. The damp smell clings to you and your gear. A mix of mildew, sweat, and jungle rot. And it is not just physical. It wears on your mind. Days of the same gray light, the same constant noise, the same unrelenting wetness start to blur together. You stop remembering what day it is. You stop expecting to feel the sun. You start to think you will never be dry again. But you keep moving because there is no choice. The rain does not stop for you, and neither does the war. You walk until your legs ache, until the mud is caked up to your knees, until the water in your boots feels like it is part of you. Then you stop, dig another hole, and lie down in it, listening to the rain hammering the leaves above you until you drift into whatever shallow sleep you can get. When you wake up, it is still raining. Of course, it is. You notice it before you even open your eyes. The rain is still falling, but underneath it, there is another layer. Thick, sour, and impossible to ignore. It is the smell. Not one smell, but a mix of everything that clings to you and everyone around you. Out here, the air is heavy enough to hold it all in place, pressing it into your nose until you cannot tell where you end, and it begins. It starts with sweat, days of marching in the heat, sleeping in damp clothes, never really washing. And you do not just smell like yourself anymore. You smell like the jungle has claimed you. It is not the sharp, salty sweat from back home after a run. This is deeper, sourer, soaked into the fabric of your uniform until no amount of rain can rinse it out. Even fresh rain seems only to wake it up, spreading it like steam rising from the ground. Then there is the mildew. Every piece of gear you own has been wet for longer than it has been dry. Packs, straps, boots, every part of it is holding on to that wet, earthy rot that comes from being soaked and never given the chance to dry. The smell creeps in slowly, but once it is there, it does not leave. You unzip a pouch and it hits you in the face, stale and clinging, like the jungle itself is trying to rot your gear down to nothing. Gunpowder is sharper. You smell it after every firefight, burned, metallic and acrid, cutting through the damp air like smoke through fog. It clings to your rifle, to your hands, to your uniform, where the muzzle blast left a faint dusting of residue. Even after the fighting is over, it hangs in the air for a while, mixing with the rain until it is all you taste when you breathe. Then there is the smell you do not talk about much. Blood, sometimes fresh, sometimes dried and crusted, sometimes half washed away by the rain, but still present in the fabric. The metallic tongue settles in your throat, even when it is not yours. Out here, blood does not vanish. It soaks in until it becomes part of the background. The jungle itself adds its own contribution. Rotting vegetation lies under every step you take, releasing that sweet, sickly scent as it is crushed underfoot. Fallen fruit rots in the undergrowth, drawing insects and leaving behind a faint fermenting odor that mingles with the stink of animal droppings. Sometimes you catch a whiff of something stronger, heavier meat going bad. You do not go looking for the source. Smoke drifts in sometimes too. Even when you are not the one making it, somewhere far off, someone is burning something wood, deer, maybe worse. The wind carries it through the trees, and for a moment, you can smell the village or camp it came from. It is a reminder that somewhere other people are living in the same mess, breathing in the same air, carrying the same stench with them. You cannot get rid of any of it. Washing is not an option most of the time. And even if you strip down in a stream, the moment you put your uniform back on, it is still there. The smell is in the fabric, in your gear, in your skin. It is in the damp padding of your helmet, the leather of your boots, the canvas of your pack. It is on your hands, under your nails, ground so deep that even scraping with a knife will not take it away. After a while, you stop noticing it. Most of the time, it is just the air you live in. You only really register it when something changes. When the gunpowder is fresh, when the blood is still warm, when the rot is close enough to make your stomach turn. Those moments cut through the numbness, reminding you that this smell is not just unpleasant. It is a map of everything you have done and everywhere you have been since you arrived. You wonder if, when you finally leave this place, you will smell it on yourself even then. If you will step into clean air and still catch that faint trace of mildew, sweat, and gunpowder in the back of your throat. You are not sure if it will ever leave. You are not sure if you want it to. Not because you enjoy it, but because it feels like part of the job now. Like part of who you have become. Someone nearby shifts their pack, the movement stirring up a fresh wave of damp, stale air. You take it in without flinching. The smell of war is not something you escape. It is something you carry. Night in the jungle is not quiet. It is not calm. And it is certainly not rest. The air cools down only a little, just enough to remind you how damp you are. Then the dark moves in fast. There is no gentle sunset, only a slow dimming until the light dies. And you are left with blackness, so thick it swallows your hand even if you wave it inches from your face. The noises change. The day sounds fade, replaced by a chorus of things that only emerge when the sun is gone. Frogs croak loud enough to sound mechanical. Insects drone in high-pitched layers that overlap until your ears begin to ring. Somewhere off to your right, something splashes in the water, heavy enough to make you picture something larger than you would want to meet in the dark. You do not stretch out and close your eyes like you would back home. Out here, sleep is a crouch, a curl, a half-sitting slump, and in the wall of your foxhole. Your rifle is always in your hands, or at least resting against your leg. You do not take your boots off because the thought of putting wet, mud-filled socks back on in a rush in the middle of the night is worse than sleeping in them. The ground is never comfortable. Even if you scrape it flat, roots push into your back, and the damp creeps through every layer between you and the earth. If you have dug a hole, the rain turns it into a shallow pond, soaking you from below while the humidity presses down from above. You lie there, feeling the cold water seep into your clothes, listening to your own heartbeat, and wondering how long until the next watch change. Bugs do not respect the fact that it is night. Mosquitoes grow worse, swarm in your face and hands, biting through your clothes. Ants crawl up your legs. Sometimes you feel something moving on you, and you slap at it before your brain is even awake enough to identify it. Other times, you do not bother, because you have learned that as long as it is not biting, it is not worth wasting the energy. The worst is when your head starts to drift, and you jerk awake again, not because of noise, but because of silence. Out here, silence is not peace. Silence means something is wrong. You sit still, every nerve pulled tight, ears straining. The jungle may be holding its breath, or maybe you are, waiting for the snap of a branch, the distant click of a safety, the whisper of movement that should not be there. Sometimes you are lucky and drift into something like real sleep. It is not deep and it does not last long, but it is enough to pull you out of the moment. You dream in short, broken flashes. Faces, places, fragments of home. Then you are awake again, because someone nudged you for your turn on watch, or because your leg cramped from being locked in the same position too long. Other nights, you do not sleep at all. You simply lie there, blinking into the dark, counting the hours until the first light. You think about how long you have been here, how many nights you have done this, and how many more there might be. Your body aches for rest, but your mind refuses to shut off. Every sound could be danger, every shadow a threat. And when exhaustion finally gets heavy enough to win, the sun is already pushing through the canopy, and it is time to move again. When morning comes, you do not feel rested. You feel the same as you did the night before, wet, sore, and tired. But you get up anyway, because out here, night is not for sleeping. It is simply the part of the day when you cannot see what is coming. Out here, you do not need to take a bullet to be in trouble. The jungle has 100 other ways to put you out of the fight, and every one of them can be just as bad. You cannot afford injuries here, not because they hurt, but because once you are hurt, you are slow, and slow gets you killed. It starts small. A blister from your boots that rubs raw after miles of marching. Back home, you would place a bandage over it and take a break. Here you keep walking. The blister bursts, it becomes an open sore, and the mud and sweat turn it into a festering mess by the next day. It stings with every step, but you cannot stop. You lace your boots tighter, grit your teeth, and keep moving. Cuts are the same story. A thorn, a jagged piece of bamboo, the edge of your own gear. It does not take much to slice you open. The problem is not the cut itself. It is what gets into it. Out here, the dirt is alive. Every scratch is an invitation for infection, and the jungle always replies. Without proper cleaning, a small cut can swell up overnight. The skin turns red and hot, with pus leaking out by the next morning. You cannot go to a medic for every little thing. Half the time you are your own medic, and all you have is a little iodine and a strip of gauze that has already been damp since the day you received it. Sprains are worse. One wrong step on a slick root or a hidden hole, and your ankle twists hard enough to send a flash of pain up your leg. You know right away that it is bad, but you cannot call for help or expect a ride out. You walk on it, limping if you must, because falling behind is not an option. The swelling comes fast, making your boot feel tighter with every step. But still, you keep moving. Your back takes a beating as well. The constant weight of the pack digs into your spine, pulling at muscles that never get a chance to rest. One bad lift, one awkward twist in the mud, and you are left with a pulled muscle that haunts every movement. There is no lying down to recover. You shift your gear, take another step, and try not to think about it. The heat adds its own injuries. Heat rash rises in every place where your skin rubs together, your thighs, your armpits, your waist, beneath your belt. At first, it is only uncomfortable. Then it turns raw, weeping, and impossible to ignore. You adjust how you move to ease the sting, but that only makes other muscles hurt. Then comes the constant threat of trench foot. Your boots are always wet. Your socks are always soaked. You may change them if you have spares, but within an hour, they are drenched again. The skin on your feet softens, splits, and peels. The pain is sharp at first, then dull, then constant. It becomes harder to walk, harder to think of anything other than the burn with every step. The real danger comes when something worse happens, something that should stop you, but cannot. A broken bone, a deep wound, a bullet that is not instantly fatal. You are patched up as best as possible, perhaps wrapped in a bandage, perhaps given a small dose of painkillers, if any remain. And then you are moving again, because the squad cannot carry you and still move quickly enough to survive. There is no real recovery here. Nothing heals as it should. You are always moving, always sweating, always grinding dirt into every wound. Even when you try to sleep, the mud presses against you and makes it worse. Pain becomes another weight you carry, like your rifle, always with you. The worst part is knowing that any one of these small injuries could end you without a single shot being fired. Not because of the wound itself, but because it slows you down just long enough for something else to find you. Out here, pain is not the true enemy. Falling behind is. When you get hurt in this place, you learn quickly that medicine is not the clean, white room kind you see in films. It is whatever you have in your pack, whatever the medic can carry, and whatever you can improvise before the next march. Supplies are always limited, conditions are never sterile, and half the time you simply trust that what you are given will help more than it will hurt. Every soldier dreams of having a trained medic nearby, but even when one is there, he is not working with much. A small canvas bag that has been damp since the day it was issued. A few rolls of gauze already spotted with mildew. A couple of bottles of iodine that burn like fire when they touch skin. If you are lucky, there may be morphine or some painkillers sealed in a waterproof tube. But luck is rare. Most of the time, the best relief you are offered is being told to bite down on something and hold still. Antibiotics are gold out here, guarded like treasure. You might receive a dose if your wound is bad enough, but most infections are fought with nothing more than cleaning, wrapping, and hope. And even cleaning is just a word here. The water may have been boiled, but it still came from a muddy puddle minutes earlier. The cloth used to wipe your wound might have served another purpose yesterday. For fevers and sickness, you are given whatever is available. Bitter tablets for malaria, quinine, or chloroquine. They taste harsh, as if they could strip paint, and they do not always work. Sometimes they only slow the fever long enough for your body to fight the rest, if it can. If you contract something worse, dysentery, typhoid, something that leaves you curled in the mud with no strength, the treatment is little more than rest and fluids. Rest means lying with your rifle beside you. Fluids mean sipping the same warm, chemical-tasting water from your canteen, hoping that enough stays down to matter. Bandages run out quickly. When they do, You improvise with strips of shirt, scarf, or even leaves, binding wounds with whatever will hold. You know it is not sterile, and you know it may make things worse later, but survival today takes priority over tomorrow. Medicine here is not about making you whole. It is about keeping you alive enough to move. Sometimes that is enough. Sometimes it is not. And when there is nothing left, no bandages, no pills, no clean water, the medic will simply tell you to cover it and keep moving. Both of you know that is not treatment. It is only hope that the jungle spares you this time. The truth is, you do not trust medicine out here as you would at home. You do not believe it will heal you. You believe it may help, and most days, that is as much as you can ask. You grow used to people out here, though not in the way you grow used to friends at home. There are no inside jokes, no long talks about the future, but a steady familiarity. The same faces in the same formation. The same voices during watch shifts. The same figures moving through the trees ahead of you. You may not know their pasts, but you know how they walk, how they breathe when tired, how they grip their rifle. And then, suddenly, one day they are simply gone. It happens quickly sometimes. A firefight, an ambush, a single shot from somewhere unseen. One moment they are beside you, the next they are on the ground. There is no time to stop, no chance to check. You keep moving because the squad is still under fire, and hesitation only creates another body. Other times, it is sickness. Someone who was fine yesterday begins shivering, sweating, unable to stand. They cannot keep food down, cannot walk without support. You try to help, but the march does not slow for one person. If evacuation is possible, they may be pulled out,